Have you ever seen a headline about what millions of people think, and you just kind of stop and wonder, wait, how do they know that? Nobody asked me. Well, it's not magic. It's the powerful and honestly pretty cool science of statistics. And today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see exactly how a small group of people can end up speaking for an entire nation. See, it all starts with questions that on the surface seem completely impossible to answer. I mean, just think about the scale of our society. We're talking hundreds of millions of people, right? Each one living their own life. How could you ever get a clear picture of the whole group? Okay, let's take this one for example. How much garbage does an entire country produce in a single day? I mean, really, try to imagine what it would take to figure that out. You'd have to track down every single trash can, every dumpster, every landfill, and weigh all of it, every single day. It's mind-boggling. And yet, we have an answer, a really specific one, too. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the average American generates about 4.6 pounds of solid waste per day. How? How do you get a number that precise for something so unbelievably massive? It just feels like it has to come from some concrete measurement, right? So what's the deal? Did they actually weigh everybody's garbage? No, of course not. That would be absolutely insane. So where did that number come from? This right here is the central puzzle that the entire field of statistics was basically invented to solve. And you see this everywhere. It's not just about trash. A study came out with this huge conclusion about millions of American teenagers, and they based it on a telephone poll of just over 1,000 of them. Seriously, how can 1,055 kids possibly represent the thoughts and fears of an entire generation? Well, the answer lies in the statistician's secret weapon. It's a method called sampling. And it's this incredibly powerful idea that lets us learn about a massive group by studying just a tiny, tiny piece of it. So let's break down exactly how this works. First things first, we got to get our terms straight. In statistics, the population isn't just about people. It's the complete collection of whatever it is we're curious about. It could be all US teens, sure, but it could also be every single car made last year, or all the stars in the galaxy. It's the whole shebang. Now, because studying that entire population is usually impossible, we select what's called a sample, and that's just a small, manageable slice of the big group that we can actually look at and collect data from. So those 1,055 teens, that was the sample. That 4.6 pounds of trash number, yep, that came from a really carefully chosen sample of households. But, and this is a huge but, this is where everything can go right or go horribly wrong. Not all samples are created equal. The way you choose your sample is everything. It determines whether you get a true picture of the population or a totally warped one. You see, a good sample is representative, meaning it's like a miniature version of the entire population. And the best way to get that is through random selection. A bad sample, a biased one, doesn't reflect the group at all. A classic example, those postcard or online surveys in magazines. Think about it. Who actually takes the time to fill those out and send them in? It's usually people with really strong opinions, right? Not your average person. I absolutely love this analogy. Just imagine you want to know how many Great Danes versus poodles are behind this tall fence, but you can only see what's over the top. So you decide to base your sample on the first 7 dogs you see, the ones that can jump high enough to be seen over that fence. Well, who are you going to see? The Great Danes, of course. Your sample would be 100% Great Danes, and your conclusion would be completely wrong. It's just a perfect way to picture how a bad sampling method gives you a totally distorted view of reality. Okay, so let's say we've done our job. We have a good, solid, representative sample. What do we do now? Well, we've got all this raw data. The next step is to organize it so we can actually find the story that's hiding inside. A lot of times, the first step is to organize the data into something like this, a frequency distribution table. Here, we've taken a sample of 30 customers, and we've just counted how many items each person returned. So instead of just a jumble of 30 numbers, we can already start to see a pattern. You can see that 7 people returned 1 item, 9 people returned 2 items, and so on. The story is starting to take shape. But really, when you turn that table into a picture, like this bar chart, the story just pops right out at you. Instantly, you can see that the most common thing that happened was customers returning 2 items. The pattern becomes super obvious, just at a glance. And to boil that story down even more, we can find the data's center. You've probably heard of the mean, that's just the plain old average, and the median, which is the value that's smack dab in the middle of all the data. Both of these give us a single number to represent what a typical outcome looks like. And now we get to the grand finale. This is the whole point. We've collected a good sample, we've organized it, we've found its story. The final step is what we call the big leap, using what we learned from our little group to say something intelligent and meaningful about the entire population. And this really brings us to the two fundamental goals of all of statistics. Number one, to make these educated guesses, or inferences, about a whole population based only on a small sample. And number two, which is just as important, is to design the whole process from the start in a way that makes sure those inferences are actually valid and not just a shot in the dark. It's this complete, elegant loop. So why does any of this actually matter to you? Because let's be honest, we are swimming in a sea of data and polls and studies every single day. Understanding these basic ideas helps you become a smarter consumer of information, instead of just, taking it all at face value. You can basically become your own data detective. Before you believe a claim, just ask a few simple questions. What was the point of the study in the first place? Who, exactly, were they studying? And the big one, how did they get their sample? Was it truly random, or was it one of those self-selected groups? And, it's always smart to be a little extra skeptical when the information is coming from someone with a clear agenda, like an advertiser or a politician. So I'll just leave you with this thought. The next time you see a poll in the news making some bold claim about millions of people, you'll know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And you'll know that the very first and most important question you should always ask is, so, how'd you get your sample?